What will the final standings look like in the Big Ten in 2025? We're going to show you what that would look like based off of our projected record. So we've gone through every Big Ten team. We've done a video, broken down the schedule, giving you a projected record, showing you how we got to that record with a formula that we used. And we're going to recap that, wrap it all up here in this video. Again, you can go back and watch all those individual videos if you want to see more on these specific teams. This will probably be a pretty quick video as we just run through the standings. And do keep in mind, this is not a prediction. Our predictions will come later. This is all based off of our formula. So before we get to the projected records, here are the records. Just a reminder in terms of who had the tougher and easier schedules in the Big Ten. And this is based off of the 2025 opponents and their records from 2024. So you see Wisconsin had the toughest Big Ten schedule, or does have the toughest Big Ten schedule. Again, based off of last year's records. This could change. Michigan by far with the easiest schedule. And so we're going to show you these standings again. And, you know, I did the ACC video, had a couple of comments. You know, why didn't I do videos on the, or not the ACC, the Big 12. Why didn't I do videos on all the Big 12 teams and we didn't do all the ACC teams? It was never my intention to skip any of the teams. It's just kind of the way that it went. It just took me longer. I've had, you know, a lot of things going on, and it's just been all that I could get to. And the reason I did like a conference at a time is because of what you're seeing on the screen right now. I had to do all the schedules, total up the records to get this graphic. And so this graphic is actually the reason why I didn't just start at the top and go through different conferences doing the top teams. It's kind of why I went conference by conference. Hopefully that makes sense. Also, the videos have bombed. They've done terrible this year, I guess, with algorithm changes. It's been a pretty rough off season here on the channel. So anything you can do to help support us, I would greatly appreciate it. But let's jump right in to the projections. And so this is the top three teams. The teams all projected to go 10-2. And keep in mind, this is based off of overall record, not conference record. So this isn't exactly what the standings would look like. For example, Ohio State might go 9-3 but only lose 2 conference games. Let's say they lose to Texas. And I guess you're probably already wondering, where is Ohio State? Why are they not on this list? Well, it just shows you the difficulty of their schedule, because Ohio State is a tier 1 team. They are in that top tier, meaning if they had the same schedule as Oregon or Penn State, they would be 10-2. But they have a tougher schedule. They have a pretty tough schedule this year. And Illinois, they're not a top tier team in our tier rankings, but they have a favorable schedule, and that's why they are up here at 10-2. And these are just in alphabetical order. I am by in no means saying that Illinois will be better or higher in the standings than Oregon or Penn State. In fact, I think Ohio State will be higher than Illinois, but this is just the way it came out. So that's what I say. You know, that's what I mean when I say these are not predictions. There is no human element here. I'm not really giving an opinion on these teams. It's just a mathematical formula. So yeah, again, that's a big takeaway here. Illinois with a very favorable schedule. Could they possibly sneak into contention in the Big Ten? Oregon and Penn State, based off of their schedules, I think probably are the favorites. But again, you look at this is the full schedule, so maybe Ohio State, if we're just talking about the conference schedule, they'd be right there with Oregon and Penn State. Yeah, interesting here. Like I said, to see Illinois at number 1. And before anyone calls me an Ohio State hater, remember, last year, preseason, I predicted Ohio State to win the national championship. So I'm not normally anti-Ohio State, and I might pick them to win the national championship again this year. Like I said, these are not predictions. This is just based off of our formula. I'm sure there will be plenty of comments telling me, you know, how crazy it is that Ohio State's not on this one line. But they are on that next line, in this next group. So here they are, tied for 4th, again, based off of overall record, 9-3 with Indiana and Michigan. And I showed you, Michigan does have a very easy non-conference schedule, or a very easy conference schedule. They do have to play Oklahoma in the non-conference, so that makes it just a little bit tougher. Indiana right there at 9-3. I know some people think Indiana's just going to fall off. Just, again, my personal opinion, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll be a good team this year. I think they will be probably a top 25 team, but I don't think they'll be a playoff team. I think they're probably in that 15 to 25 range. We'll see. Again, I have a lot more research to do on these teams as we go into the offseason before I actually start doing predictions. So I don't know for sure where I'll wind up with Indiana. Maybe I do have them in the playoff. But yeah, an Indiana team that I think will be good, again, and their schedule gives them a great shot to have another good season. Michigan, again, talked about the conference schedule being easy, but Ohio State's schedule is tough. You do have Texas in the non-conference. You've got some tougher games in the Big Ten. So that's why they're at 9-3. I have Ohio State a tier above both Michigan and Indiana, but with the same record because Indiana and Michigan have much easier schedules. So those teams tied for 4th. We'll go now to the teams below them tied for 7th at 8-4. That's Minnesota and Nebraska. So could Nebraska continue to take steps forward, maybe get up to 8-4 this year? Minnesota, we've seen many times from them kind of finish in that 7-5, 8-4 range. So I think that's a pretty fair projection for these two teams. I think now we're getting into, I guess, I don't know. I don't know if I would consider Minnesota and Nebraska as dark horses. I think you've got your top contenders. Honestly, because of the way the schedule's set up, I think that Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan are top contenders, even though they're not in that top tier. Their schedules give them a chance. So I think you do have 6 teams that have a real shot. Minnesota, Nebraska, probably more like dark horse teams. It's tough for me to see either one of these teams making a run and getting to the Big Ten championship. Is it impossible? No, but I think it's very unlikely. So that's kind of where I'm at with Minnesota and Nebraska. But again, with our formula, their projected record comes out to 8-4. Next, we've got some teams going 7-5. This is Iowa, USC, and Washington. I was surprised Washington was this high. I don't remember. Maybe they had an easier schedule. Iowa and USC, I think this is pretty fair for them. I think these teams they'll be solid. They'll be decent, but I don't think that they are. I don't even think they're in the dark horse category. I don't think, especially when you look at Iowa's schedule, it is brutal. It is a very tough schedule. But Iowa and USC, to me, I think they'll be good. I think they could possibly get to like 9-3 if things go their way. But I don't think either team is really. I wouldn't even put them in the dark horse category. I think they're just too many teams above them. So that's where I land with them. Washington, I think, again, that maybe this is a pretty favorable projection for them at 7-5. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, Iowa, USC, Washington, all tied at 7-5. Let's go to the 6-6 teams now. That's going to be Maryland, Michigan State, and UCLA. That would be a big step up for Maryland. They were pretty bad last year. Michigan State, UCLA. With the addition of Nico to UCLA, I don't think it probably would have changed their tier. So I think you would still get the same projection at 6-6. These teams, to me, get to a bowl game. You've had a pretty good season. You don't make it to a bowl game, obviously it's a disappointment. Michigan State's a program you feel like is on the rise. Maybe they could do better than this. UCLA's kind of a question mark. I don't know about Maryland. Where does Maryland land this year? It's hard to predict. This is a team that surprised me last year with how bad they were. Let's move on now to number 15. Our team's tied at 5-7. Northwestern and Wisconsin. It's crazy to see Wisconsin projected at 5-7. That's just not where we normally see them. Northwestern, we know that that's a team that goes up and down. You never know what you're going to get. Maybe they're a surprise team this year. But without the divisions, without the Big Ten West and the East, I don't see Northwestern ever really making that run to the Big Ten Championship because they've now got to go through not only all the teams in the East, but you also add in the new teams like USC, Oregon, So that I think it's going to be tough for Northwestern to ever really make a run, and maybe even Wisconsin at this point. But a projection of just 5-7 for them. There's Rutgers at 4-8. They actually have a lot coming back. I was looking at their projections, trying to figure out how does this team wind up at 4-8. They do have some games against, I can't remember, maybe Oregon, Ohio State, some games where they came out at 0% in the formula. So I guess they had enough of those games that it kind of pulled that record down. But I was surprised. I was surprised to see Rutgers that low. I think it's a team that can absolutely get to a bowl game. And then finally, we've got Purdue. Poor Purdue in last place, 3-9. This is going to be a much different team, though, so they could surprise. We'll see how it plays out, but they were in the bottom tier, again, based off of mostly what happened last year. So those are the projections for the Big Ten. Which teams do you think will do better or worse? I kind of mentioned that as I went through the video. There are definitely teams that I think will do better or worse than these projections, but we'll see how it plays out. I will share my predictions at a later date once we get a little bit closer to the season. But yeah, give me your thoughts down in the comments below, and thank you for watching this video.